Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Possibility OK in the trueoffmychest subreddit. The post is titled, "I found out about my wife's infidelity after testing positive for an STD. I am livid. The only person I have had within the past 5 years has been my wife. I thought I had a bladder infection or UTY and scoffed when my doctor thought it was chlamydia. Well, here we are. I got the test results yesterday and I have chlamydia. Decided to start snooping and it didn't take long to find the text messages between her and her boy toy. My guess is she doesn't even know she had it as well. She thinks I stayed up all night working, but little does she know I've already emailed her little lover boy's wife all the text messages. I warned the lover boy's wife that he's been sleeping with an infected woman and to get herself tested. I'm still deciding how to process this all, but wifey's going to wake up to my positive test results and the messages of her infidelity. The sun should be coming up in the next hour or two and probably will be the end of this marriage. Update. I'll make a longer update eventually. I didn't confront her that morning. Boy Toy's wife ended up responding to me and she has not confronted her husband yet either. I'm getting my legal bases covered first. Update. My last post got an unexpected amount of attention. I guess you guys do deserve an update. The short of what happened was my wife gave me chlamydia. I found out she was sleeping with a coworker and planned to blow our marriage up that night. Thankfully, my drunken mind decided to wait. I had gotten into contact with the coworker's wife, giving her evidence of what was going on and informing her that the two cheaters probably both had chlamydia. I did this because I suspected my wife was cheating with more than one person. In her text, her lover boy had asked her if he was the only one she was screwing at the time, and she gave a non-answer. I know this woman well enough that I knew she was screwing someone else as well. Luckily, the coworker's wife got back to me first thing in the morning to explain that she figured he was seeing someone else. The two of them were privately separated at the time and their separation agreement stated they were not to see anyone else during that period. She had her own suspicions and thanked me for reaching out. We agreed that she would not confront her husband until I could cover my own legal bases in exchange for the evidence I had of their affair together. She also confirmed to me that her husband didn't have chlamydia, at least when they were still together. I decided not to confront my wife that morning. I pretended everything was fine and dandy while I looked for lawyers and dug deeper to figure out the mystery of the chlamydia caper. I installed a keylogger on my wife's personal PC and quickly got access to a secret email, where, guess what? My wife was talking with someone on a hookup website. The best part was that it solved the mystery, as the man informed her he tested positive for chlamydia and that she probably had it. Even better, these emails were from months before I was infected myself, meaning she knowingly infected me with chlamydia. Disappointed that it was not in fact the chlamydia fairy that caused all this, I have a lawyer. It's not looking well for my soon-to-be ex. The fact she knowingly infected me made my lawyer salivate, along with the mountain of proof of her infidelity. The house we live in is my parents', and we've kept our finances separate since the beginning. Her chances of getting much, if anything, out of me are pretty slim. I served her the divorce papers last month. I bought a security camera on Amazon when this all started, saying I was going to put it over our front door. I hid it in the living room the morning I decided to confront her. I decided to take one of the top comments from my first post on how to drop this on her. We were sitting and having breakfast when I said, "So I'm curious, does know you infected him with chlamydia as well?" The short of it was, she cried, apologized, tried to claim it was a one-time thing, tried to claim she loved me, tried to blame me, screamed at me that I don't make her feel loved, yada yada, you get it. I served her the divorce papers and her eviction notice right after. I'm staying with my parents until she's out of the house in a few weeks just to be safe. I'm juggling if I want to try and press assault charges against her for knowingly infecting me with chlamydia. As my lawyer said, it should be pretty easy to prove with the emails we have. Overall though, I just want her out of my life like the STD she is. User Euphoric Echo said, "The worst part of this is that she knowingly infected him with an STD. That's just such a nasty thing to do, especially to someone you supposedly loved enough to marry." User Load Altruistic said, "It's always hilarious when cheaters get caught. It's funny that they try to apologize. Never be fooled. It's not because they're actually sorry. They're just sad that they got caught and jeopardized their stability." This next post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a user named What About the Kids. The post is titled Caught Wife Cheating. Now, what about the kids? I'm really sorry for the long post, but I had to get it out. I lost my first wife 10 years ago. At the time, I had 2 daughters who are now 21 and 24. Life went on after about 3 years, and I met my current wife. We met innocently enough. We kept bumping into each other at various places around town. We never really talked, but sometimes we made eye contact, pointed at each other from a distance, and just smiled. Then one day, while getting my car worked on, she walked into the waiting room while hers was being serviced as well. We finally had a long conversation and decided to go across the street for real coffee since the service center coffee was bad. We talked for about an hour until I was paged that my car was done. I asked if she would like to have lunch one day to continue our conversation, and we exchanged numbers and set a date to meet up. We dated for 2 years and then got married. She has 2 boys, now 10 and 14, who moved into my house after living with her parents for 3 years. My daughters loved her, not as a stepmom, but as a big sister. Having another adult in the house with 2 teenage girls was a blessing. Life is grand. I love those boys as if they were my own, and I want to adopt them when they can make that decision on their own. The younger one calls me dad, while the oldest found it awkward at first. I told him to call me whatever he felt comfortable with. He chose my first name. The girls called her by her name. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. We decided that until the kids were adjusted, she wouldn't work but would volunteer at school lunches and other activities. Daughter 1 went off to college and has now graduated. The younger daughter graduated this past morning, and we are moving the rest of her things this weekend. I was told that her ex abandoned them around the time their second child was born and has had no contact since then. Her mom is very nice, but keeps me at arm's length. He is an alpha dog. I don't think he wanted anyone else taking care of his only child and grandchildren. He would berate me for being too old. This would happen anytime I was around them. I'm non-confrontational, so I told my wife I would just stay away from them. However, I encouraged her to maintain their relationship since they only live a couple of blocks away. In February of this year, her ex reappeared and wanted to be involved in their lives. He is sketchy at best, but I couldn't refuse this. He started coming around often, and I set a boundary that he could come on weekends so as not to interfere with school, allowing us to control his visitation somewhat. He comes most weekends, but really spends little time alone with the kids as we try to give him space. I asked my wife if he had made any child support payments while he was gone. She said no. I suggested she talk to him about catching up on what he owes and ask about signing over his rights so I could adopt them. She said she would talk to him. The first part of March saw our life start to decline. You know where this is going, right? But I was oblivious at the time. When I mentioned it to my wife, she gave me the usual excuses. I noticed the little things around the house were different. My favorite snacks were gone and a few beers were missing. But the big issue was that I could smell what I thought was weed. When I asked my wife if she was smoking, she said she hadn't been. I thought the now 14-year-old might be smoking and suggested we talk with him. She said she would handle it. About 2 weeks ago, the 14-year-old asked me if I loved his mom. I said yes, thinking he might have a girlfriend and it was time for a talk. He then said that we always sat together and were touching each other in some way or another, which made him feel good. He asked if his mom loved his dad. I responded that sure, on some level she does. Why was he asking? He replied that they were always looking at each other, talking and touching, and that he is over all the time. When I asked what he meant by all the time, he said that almost every day when they get home from school, he is there and then leaves. That weekend, I was in the living room and he was over for visitation. He comes in and sits down across from me with a beer. I look up from my reading and tell him to help himself to a beer. He says nothing. I ask why he isn't with the kids. I can hear laughing in the family room. He says he might go in a little bit. I tell him I will not drink in front of the kids. I wait until after they are in bed. He says nothing. Then he states, "You know I am only here for her." I ask what that means and he's talking about my wife. He says technically they are not divorced. He never signed papers, so she is still his wife. I know a judge signed off on the divorce because he could not be found, which is why it took longer to finalize. I finally asked about the child support since I never heard back. He just looked at me and said that he was caught up, paid her $15K in cash. I was shocked. I asked if she talked to him about giving up rights. She never asked. He asked what it would be worth to me. I said, "You've got to be kidding. Would you sell your kids?" Before he could answer, I told him to leave. The next day, this past Sunday, the kids were at Grandma and Grandpa's with my wife. I bought and installed a small motion-activated camera on top of the TV with a view of the front door and living room. Nothing unusual happened until Wednesday around 10 a.m. when I received an alert on my phone. I was at work and initially thought it might be my wife cleaning, but I looked anyway. He comes back and she lets him in. They kiss long and passionately. He starts grabbing at her, she playfully pushes away, and they're laughing. He sits on the couch, she brings him a beer and snacks. At 10 a.m., she disappears and returns a few minutes later, changed and ready to go to school for lunch. They continue talking with more grabbing and pushing away, laughing. Eventually, she performs oral sex on him. She finishes, says something, and leaves. He watches TV and then takes a nap. A little after 1 p.m., another alert shows her coming home. They talk and head to the bedroom. I race home and find them. They never heard me coming. Hysterics ensue. He slithers out. I tell her she has to go. She pleads it was a one-time mistake, that he had just arrived and she was lonely because we weren't having sex. I call BS. I asked how often he came over. She claimed just on weekends. I showed her the video of him napping. She said he was tired and asked to rest. Then I showed her the video of the sexual act. She had nothing to say. I told her to pack her bags. She was out. I called her dad to take them in, saying we were having issues. He took an alpha position, telling me how I would mess this up. I finally stopped him, showed him the edited video, and told him to call me back if I was wrong. I never heard back. I spoke with my lawyer on Thursday. He referred me to a family law partner and will meet on Tuesday to discuss the divorce. He believes I might be responsible for child support but not alimony due to our prenuptial agreement. My question is, has anyone else been through a divorce and maintained a relationship with their ex's children even though they are not biologically theirs? The 14-year-old is vulnerable as he'll be entering high school next year, and I don't want to see him go down the wrong path like his father. User Mobiac said, I'm so sorry, this sounds awful. I have a feeling that your wife was hiding him for longer than you think, but what kind of trashy family is giving you grief when their daughter is the one who messed up? Unfortunately, you got caught in a situation that had relative risk from the start. May I advise you not to give any money if they are not your kids. She won't utilize it for the boys. She's most likely to spend it with that joke of a man. So, what's the situation now? Is she still begging you? User Superhero Stitch said, given the age of the kids, it's likely that they can participate in the divorce and custody conversation and express their own preferences. Some mediations allow the kids to have their own time alone with the decision maker to share their thoughts. It sounds like the kids are bonded to you, so don't lose hope that you'll still be a big part of their lives. A deleted user said, you aren't in any position to generate security for the boys. They had you in their lives, were influenced by your love, and may even come back to share their lives with you. Maybe. You can do nothing more. She will try to keep you in their lives, but not for them. Any money you give her will go to clothes, drinks, a car, or whatever else. Instead, offer to buy their school clothes, take them shopping, cut off the tags, and keep the receipts. Offer to take them out to eat once a week, just them, stay in their lives only if it's on your terms and she benefits nothing. She is a lying manipulator and will continue to try to manipulate you. You'll get no support from her family. Those boys are going to have whatever life their mother gives them. That's just the way it is. Sorry. Update. Sorry, this update might be jumbled. I originally posted it in the wrong sub. This is the umpteenth time I have written this out, and each time it's shorter. I'm not sure how to cross-post, so I am retyping it. Please bear with me. Last week was busy with my daughter's graduation, moving her home, kids' sports starting, meetings with my lawyer, and the first face-to-face with my wife. I got home on Sunday and put my daughter's stuff from her apartment in the garage. I received a call early in the evening from my 14-year-old. Dad, what's going on? No one is talking to us. Mom and Grandma are crying and Grandpa's yelling. Is this because of what I told you? I assured him that his mom made a bad mistake and that he had nothing to do with this mess. He asked if I was packing up their stuff because he saw the U-Haul in the driveway. I explained what happened and that all their stuff would remain there. Monday and Wednesday were sports nights. The family sits in the bleachers while I stand behind home plate at the backstop. my usual spot since I don't see eye to eye with my father-in-law. On the way across the field, the oldest son stops his warm-up and runs over to me. We hug and talk for a few minutes before sending him back. As I get to my spot, a 10-year-old crashes into me at full speed. I bend down to hug and kiss him all over as he squirms away. My Phil asks if we could talk, so we step away from earshot. He apologizes for how he has treated me in the past and admits he was wrong. It's a little late for that, but I accepted his apology and said I knew it was hard for him to do. He invited me to sit with them, but I declined. He asked if I wanted to talk to my wife. I said Thursday would be better and suggested we set a time and place. Tuesday came and I met with my lawyer. I told him the whole story. He already knew some details from his partner, but wanted to hear it from me directly. He asked what I wanted to do, and I expressed that I wanted to stay with the boys and remain married because they were most important to me. He stated that in his experience, staying married would be a charade and not good for the boys. We could work out visitation if my wife was willing. As for support, he said I could do what I wanted for the boys, but advised against giving her anything that would allow me to control it. The prenup was solid. She violated its conditions, so there would be no support from me. He cautioned me that judges around the country have sometimes ordered child support in cases like mine due to being involved in the children's lives for so long. He didn't think our judges had ruled that way in the past, but you never know. He was sure her attorney would seek support, so he suggested we try to agree on everything we could before court. This would make a favorable impression on the judge. Before leaving, he mentioned that every Monday morning, the partners meet to discuss new and ongoing cases. My previous attorney started by describing everything. Each partner has a specialty: estate planning / elder law, criminal law, liability, family law. Later in the afternoon, the criminal lawyer met with my attorney. After their meeting, he called a contact in the prosecutor's office because $15K did not seem right to him. How do folks in the middle class have $15K in cash lying around? It turns out my wife's ex did not abandon them. He had been in jail. He was released 3 years ago when federal authorities were releasing non-violent criminals to ease overcrowding. My attorney was sure that law enforcement would be interested if he was back and practicing his profession again, but he didn't have any other information beyond that jail time. Thursday, I met with my wife and FIL. I asked if they minded if I recorded the conversation so there would be no misinterpretation later. They agreed. Before we started, my wife wanted to talk privately, so Phil moved to another room. My wife started to apologize, but I cut her off. I told her, "Before you say anything, know that I know a lot more than you think." I asked how long the affair had been going on. She claimed it was only one time. I told her the video proves that is not true. I played a clip of her dusting the TV, which showed the camera she hadn't noticed. It's not big, but it's obvious sitting on top of the TV. She thought it was part of a video game system. I know the footage only covered a few days, but since she was gonna lie, I decided to bluff. She admitted that the affair had been going on since March, almost immediately after he came back into her life. I told her no more lies. Then I brought up the family secret, that her ex hadn't run away but had been in jail. She admitted this as well. I asked how long they had been in contact, and she said since February. When I asked if she had met up with him before he reappeared in February, she said no. Then I told her he had been out of jail for 3 years. The look on her face told me she didn't know. We brought Phil back into the room and turned on the recorder. I asked my wife if she had a lawyer. She said no. I told her to get one because a divorce was going to happen. Both she and Phil asked if reconciliation was possible, and I said no. I told them I wanted custody of the boys and that she could live with her ex if she wanted to. Privately, during our earlier conversation, I had told her that her ex tried to sell me custody of the boys. We settled on an agreement. The boys could see me anytime within reason, and she would not keep me from them. I also made it clear that I would provide for them at my discretion, not through her, and that she would not receive any support from me. I emphasized that I didn't want her using the boys to ask me for things and that they needed to be honest with me if I asked them directly. There you have it. One last thing. Redditors, my wife and I are avid readers of this site. We have our favorite subs and used to read and share posts together. It was something we did as a couple. She has read my posts here because she figured out who wrote them and has read every reply you made. She stated that you savaged her in your comments. You said many things that I only wish I could have said because they reflected how I truly felt at times. For that, I thank you. This final post was made in the same subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "My GF of 3 years confessed to me that she only started dating me because she knew I had a massive crush on her for a very long time. Her roommate was the one to convince her to go on a pity date with me. So I have had a mega crush on my girlfriend ever since our school days. We were in the same school, although she was one class ahead of me. My crush was so obvious that everyone at school knew about it. If I was anywhere near her, people would give us mischievous smiles, and if we were sitting together, my friends would tease me mercilessly. In short, it was impossible for her not to know about my feelings. However, I never had the courage to ask her out. After school, we moved to different parts of the world for our education and weren't even Facebook friends. Around 3.5 years ago, I attended a friend's birthday celebration and saw her again. It was definitely her, only she had become even more gorgeous and badass. The friend whose birthday it was a mutual friend from our school, and he, of course, knew about my crush. There were 2 or 3 other mutual friends there who also knew about my feelings and encouraged me to go talk to her. So, with my heart in my mouth, I finally approached her and had a brief conversation. She recognized me from school and we had a nice chat before exchanging numbers and social media accounts. With great trepidation, I did some light detective work to find out if she was single. To my great relief, I didn't see any guys in her feed, so my hopes went up a little. I reached out to her to hang out, fully expecting her to turn me down, but she accepted, much to my surprise. We hung out and discovered that we had a lot in common, and we decided to meet up again. Things picked up from there, and eventually we became boyfriend and girlfriend. She is everything I expected and more. Plus, she is extremely happy with our relationship. We have even been discussing marriage. Last weekend, we hosted her best friend and her husband for dinner at our house. The best friend is someone I knew during our school days, and she is a good friend too. After dinner, we were shooting the breeze when her drunk best friend suddenly turned to my girlfriend and said, "Look how happy you are today. I feel a sense of pride seeing you two together." I smiled and said thank you. Then the best friend continued talking to my girlfriend. "You didn't even want to give this guy a chance. You only agreed when I pestered you to go on a pity date with him. Your plan was to let him down easy after that date, but instead, you guys are sitting here talking about your future together. It makes me so happy that I convinced you to take a chance on him. Can you imagine if you had stuck to your original plan?" Her husband quickly realized the awkwardness of the situation and led her away to sleep. I could see that my girlfriend was visibly stressed by what her friend had said. We went to bed too, and when she came in after changing clothes, she was already in tears. She took my hand in hers and said, "Please don't mind her words." I asked her if it was true, and she admitted that it was. She knew I always had a massive crush on her. When I asked her out, she didn't want to be mean by turning me down harshly, so she discussed it with her best friend, who was also her roommate at the time, about the situation. The best friend knew me well enough that she tried to convince my girlfriend to give me a chance, but my girlfriend wasn't convinced at first. Finally, the best friend asked her to go on 2 or 3 dates with me and then let me down easy if it didn't work out. My girlfriend agreed, but then she found out we really clicked together and wanted to continue dating, and well, here we are 3 years later. I hugged her and said it was okay, not to worry about it too much since it's water under the bridge. But as you can tell, it's obviously bothering me. I think she has started to catch on too because she has been extra attentive and loving since the incident. So Reddit, on one hand, I am the guy who is literally going to be engaged and eventually married to my crush. And it's even better than I imagined because our relationship is 10 times better than what I dreamed of. On the other hand, it stings a little to know that she only agreed to go out with me because she pitied me, no lie. Please knock some sense into me before I self-sabotage this wonderful relationship. Thank you. Update. In the morning, my girlfriend's best friend apologized for her insensitive comments the night before. She admitted she got too drunk and said she just wanted to take credit for setting us up and playing matchmaker, but in her drunken state, she blurted out some unnecessary things. I told her she didn't have to apologize and that in fact I should thank her for convincing my girlfriend to go on that first date with me. After the BFF left, I sat down with my girlfriend, shared my feelings, and asked her why she had been hesitant to go out with me in the first place. She took my hands in hers and explained that it just felt awkward at the time. She had known for years that I had a crush on her. On top of that, I was younger and a grade below hers in school. Her friends from back home used to tease her by bringing up my name, and almost all of our mutual friends knew about my crush on her. So when I asked her out, it felt awkward because she knew I was more into her than she was into me before we'd even gone on a single date. She felt like I had put her on a pedestal and was certain that reality would never live up to my fantasy of her, so she wanted to avoid going through that experience. She also admitted that she thought I was a bit of a weirdo back then, but after her BFF vouched for me and encouraged her to give me a chance, she decided to go out with me with the intention of letting me down gently after 2 to 3 dates. I then asked her what changed after the first date. She smiled and said, "Well, you didn't give off any weird vibes. Yes, you were very happy and nervous, but I didn't get any creepy vibes from you at all. You were just a guy with a crush, one with whom I had insane chemistry even on the first date. And now, 3 years later, I think I have a bigger crush on you than you ever had on me." After having this conversation, we decided to go out for dinner at the same restaurant where we had our first date. We even tried to order the same dishes, but found out that one of them had been discontinued. So instead, we decided to try something entirely new. Dishes we'd never had before. That's the update, guys. Thank you for reminding me how lucky I am. User Irika said, "My dad's friend found a wife by standing in the market square with a sign stating that he was new in town, worked at Factory X, and needed a date for a New Year's ball. His future wife felt adventurous. To this day, she tells how she went broke because she paid the bills and bought tickets for her friends, who kept an eye on them during their first dates. They are still going strong after 40 years. User Loyal Crow List said, "I understand why she was hesitant. When someone has such a well-known crush on you, there's a ton of pressure if you decide to go out with them. I know from experience. There are expectations, people have already been talking about what kind of couple you might be, and there's constant teasing. I once dated someone who had a crush on me because everyone said I should give him a chance, and I didn't want to judge him unfairly. It turned out terribly. He had so many expectations for me and what I'd be like, and then everyone kept saying things like, 'Oh, they're finally together,' which made it even harder to break things off when it didn't work out. But this worked out perfectly for them. She was able to get past her anxiety and worry and realize that she really liked him. I'm so glad it worked because this is such a sweet story."